My guest today is Lucy Biggers.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm Lucy Biggers. I'm the social media editor actually at the Free Press. That's my full-time job, but I am also a former climate influencer, and I have a bit of a following on Instagram and TikTok where I talk about why I left the climate movement, why I think the climate movement now is very destructive. In my early videos, you could say I've called it a scam. Um, and my why, I guess you could say, is I'm trying to create content that really counters this fear and anxiety narrative that we're getting pushed on us from Western media. My entry point into that is climate change and how young people suffer from climate anxiety, because that was my experience, but it can really be applied to like everything across the news.
Okay, and as I was saying before we hit record, I'm just a huge fan of your story because you have pictures of yourself with AOC and with Greta, and you know AOC, right?
Yeah, I know AOC. We're the same age. We are both now 35, but I knew her when she was running for office back in, what was it, 2018? I met her in 2017 or end of 2016. It's all a blur. I should know my dates. I met her like 6 months before she ended up winning her primary. So I think it was the end of 2017, then she won in 2018. So anyway, I met her at a very small event that was for Democrats who were taking back the House after Trump had won. And remember that they did take back the House. I'm pretty sure it was a huge push to get more young people out there because everyone on the left was like, how could we have just done such a bad job? We did not see this coming. And AOC was somebody who ended up running. And she was a complete unknown when I met her, but I ended up interviewing her a few times throughout the years, meeting her a few times. And I always really liked her. She's been always nice to me, but I don't subscribe to her same policies. And so that's where we differ.
So one thing you did say is, though, you think she is sincere and she believes what she's saying, right?
Yeah, I do think that she is sincere. I think that's why people like her. I think that's why she breaks through in a way that I think some of the Democratic elite don't. When you look at Cuomo, you're like, what are you trying to say? Like, what do you stand for? And I think with AOC and now Zohran Mamdani, it's like, I don't think their ideas are good, but I think that they stand for something. And they really believe, that capitalism is very, very bad. They believe that income inequality really needs to be fought with more government spending. I don't know why they don't look at the money we're spending now and realize it's not being spent well. But I do believe that she is a true believer and a savvy, politician.
Okay, so let's talk about your transition from true believer on the alarmist side to a person who's like quoting Steve Koonin these days.
Yeah, so my transition was sort of slow. So I was a climate influencer from 2015 was when I started my old job and started covering the climate to 2021. So that was when I was 25 to when I was 31. And I worked for this news company called Now This News, which is a very left-wing digital news. Do you know it?
Just through you, I've watched
Okay.
your videos. That's how I know it. Yeah.
So my generation, Now This was like the very cool, cutting-edge social media news company on Facebook. And we had all these viral videos that were like text on screen videos. So I was a video producer there for those years. Then I started covering the climate movement. And I say like I'm a climate activist because I was really a mouthpiece for the climate movement in my newsroom, which I think like the evolution we've seen in the newsrooms over the past 30 years is that there's a lot of activists in the newsroom, right? And that standard, there were never older editors being like, well, what's the other side? Call your source, right? It was just pushing one thing. So I did that for many years. I will say I always had a pit in my stomach that I felt like what I was doing was not the whole picture. I felt like I was pushing a very black and white perspective that was what I was supposed to push by being part of the movement. But I always was like, I think it's more complicated. And it felt a little bit like cognitive dissonance, but I didn't really listen to that voice until I lived through COVID and I had 2 kids. I think that gave me the space or I had 1 kid initially. I have 2 now, but I had 1 kid in 2022. And that gave me the space initially to really start to question what I was pushing. And I think I started privately having more conversations and sort of saying like, I think this is kind of bullshit. Kind of feeling almost like a hypocrite because I would say one thing publicly to my 50,000 Instagram followers, and then maybe over a glass of wine to a friend, I would be like, well, actually, plastic is not that bad. Or, it's all really like about the pollution in South America. That's what we should really be worried about. And in 2019, I read Schellenberger's book, Apocalypse Never. And then in 2021, I read Steve Koonen's book, Unsettled. Yes. Privately, by the way, did not share that part with my audience. So I started sort of doing privately educating myself. And then finally, I never was like forced to really come out with my perspective. I think I could have just gone to the grave, but I just got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to be 80 years old on my deathbed and regret not speaking out for fear of backlash. Like, I just want to speak out around what I see that's the problem with the climate movement. And I loved speaking, if you can't tell. And I was feeling really sad because I was like, I feel like I have something to say. And I think it's this thing about calling up the climate movement. But every time I would kind of get to it, I go, no, I can't. That's too scary. And then finally I was like, I just got to take the leap. So I started on TikTok posting every single day for a month of like Memorial Day to end of June was my first time back, which is crazy because it was only 3 months ago. And I did a series called Why I Think the Climate Movement. Oh, sorry. This is the series. Why, as a former climate activist, I now think the climate movement is a scam. And every day I did a video about it, and just each topic, whatever came to me that day, I would write about. And that gave me my confidence. And then once I did that for about a month, I then started posting on my Instagram, my Twitter, on Substack notes, and going to a wider audience because I felt like I was strong enough to take the backlash.
So you're only a few months into being a public climate realist and this type of thing. Wow. You made a big splash very fast, which is,
thank you.
Yeah, what a great story. Oh, do you want to talk about your Standing Rock days before we go back to that?
Of course. Yeah, I know. So my Standing Rock days were that when Standing Rock happened, oh God, I really made it go viral. I apologize, guys. Like, I feel like I have a lot of apologies to do. Okay, so my Standing Rock days were that when Standing Rock was picking up, it was a huge social media push around it. And like, we would be posting videos at Now This about other topics like recycling or whatever. And I would always get comments that are like, cover Standing Rock, cover Standing Rock, cover Standing Rock. And I'm like, what is Standing Rock? And so I was very early into it from just being online all the time. So I started covering it, covering the different celebrities that were going, watching the movement. Our videos were getting millions and millions of views on Now This, where I edited. And like one video that got like 20 million views in a day, I swear to God, was of that actress, Shailene Woodley. And she was making a speech and she was saying, go to Standing Rock, go to Standing Rock. And I edited that and it went out to our audience. It got viewed millions of times. And then I ended up going out there myself, seeing everything. And even when I was like going out there, I was kind of like, this doesn't really make sense, but like, I feel really good pushing this because it makes me feel like I'm a good person. I'm on the right side of history, now because I'm helping these Native American tribes. And so the logic, I couldn't really follow the logic to the end of the conclusion, but I just felt like, okay, I'm on the right side of history. We got to push this narrative. And so, yeah, I went out and then I ultimately wrote a piece for the Free Press a year ago where I said, like, I regret it. So.
And yeah, I'm just reading from that. I tweeted part of that. I think you wrote that 48 million pounds of garbage were left by the protesters.
Oh, yes. And it cost the town $1 million to clean it up or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So bad.
Amazing.
Ugh, I feel so bad about that.
So, so you want to talk about the backlash that you faced? You must have, like, friends and stuff must have hated it when you came out on the other side of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot of followers on Instagram. I try not to read the comments because I feel like it's not good for my mental health. But I've had people that I know in my real life, just basically say that like I'm a sellout, that I've given up on progress. A lot of the backlash, it's just from people who really don't understand where I'm coming from. And the fact is that I do care about progress. I do care about our planet, but I don't think what the climate movement is pushing is the solution. It has so many downsides that I feel like it's so undercovered. And so I feel like the backlash has been hard at times, especially when it's people that I really know and love. And I feel like it comes from a really like vitriolic place where it's a personal attack on my character versus engaging with the facts of what I'm saying. But I will say that the reaction overwhelmingly has been more positive than negative. At least that's what I pay attention to. And a lot of people who don't like me unfollowed me after like my first 2 videos. And so I was like, okay, bye.
Do you have any sense that other people in your movement as of 6 years ago have followed a similar path, or they're at least privately, they're realizing that there's no climate crisis, that type of thing?
Yes, definitely. I actually have gotten after my first video that went off about a month ago or whenever that was, I got a lot of messages from people, text messages, voice memos, DMs saying, hey, I've been on a very similar trajectory as you. Like prominent people that I know who I'm not going to share their identity, of course, who say like, I feel the same way as you. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know what to do with this evolution. And I'm trying to figure out my next step. And I think that's another huge why for me is being a model for people like that, that like, okay, you can come out, the world does not end. There are a lot of us out there. You don't have to be trapped in this like mental prison almost in a movement that you know doesn't work because you're afraid of what on the other side is. So yes, it's definitely common.
So yeah, it makes me very happy that someone like you is on our side now because you are so good at making stuff go viral, right? You have different examples of an AOC video went viral for you, right? Huge. And then just recently in the last week, you've had another one, right? That got 3.6 million views on Twitter, I think, something like that.
Yeah, wait, which one was it? I forget. Was it one of the ones, did I film it? I think
you
I
directed it. You said you directed it. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I directed. My coworker did a piece at the Free Press. She read all of Mom Donnie's tweets. And so we made a video, and he has 16,000 of them, where she is in his style because he's always like walking, and then there's like a transition. And so we were like, we've got to do the recap of your reporting in the Mom Donnie style. So we did that around the office. And so, yeah, I wrote that script and edited it, where my coworker video edited it. But yeah, no, I'm happy to be using my talents for good, you could say.
That's fun that I enjoyed watching that video, and I didn't even know you were spoofing his style because I didn't know his style. I still like it.
Yeah. Good.
So you have a background way back in, you were an anchor, writer, reporter on TV, and you've been on reality TV too, right?
You're such a good researcher.
Thank you.
No one's asked me about that yet. I feel like I've lived a million lives. I'm like Forrest Gump. But yes, I graduated from Tulane in 2008, and then I always wanted to go on camera, but I didn't have any journalism experience. I was a history and political science major. And my mom actually was in TV when I was a kid. So I kind of had her as a model. And then when I was graduating, I was like, okay, how do I get into TV now? And I got advice that was like, if you go to a small news station, you can get in. And so I had an internship at a news station, made a 2-minute reel, and then I got a morning anchor job in Greenville, Mississippi, which is the smallest news, like I think it's one of the smallest, if not the smallest news like segments in the country. So they always are taking 22-year-olds and paying them. I think I've got paid $23,000 a year. And zero experience to host a show. Like they trained me for 1 week and then I was hosting the show. And I'm like, guys, I don't know what I'm doing. So I did that for 2 years. And then while we were there, producers came and they were like, oh, we want to do a local news reality show. And I was like, I love this. So fun. And so I just was part of like being part of the reality show. So they filmed me while I was a news anchor, although they kind of like made it cheesy and like, it wasn't like the most accurate reality show, but I played myself. I don't know. The whole thing was just like a fever dream.
So, in research for this, I wanted to watch it. It sounds like it's coming on Amazon Prime. That's what it says. It's going to be on Amazon Prime. I don't know if that's true.
It was on Amazon Prime in the past. I don't know why it's gotten taken off. Maybe I can't go back and watch it.
Fantastic. And then you mentioned that you might to go into politics yourself. Maybe that's the door's open there in the future. Is that right? I'm going with the flow. I'm not against it. Like, I think if it made sense, like, and the opportunity arose and everything lined up, I would be open to it. But it's not like something that I'm actively pursuing. But I'm not like ruling it out. But I'm not like trying to run for office. Okay, glad to hear it. Then you have had some high-profile interviews already, right? In the last month or two. Chris Cuomo is one of those, and yeah. Yeah, I have. So I work what I do at the Free Press is I actually book our talent, like our reporters onto shows. So when my Mom Donnie piece for the Free Press was going viral, all the bookers have my cell phone number. So they immediately were like, hey, come on. So I got booked on like Fox Business, Cuomo, like because the connection was already there. So it was sort of an easy step. I've been on a few podcasts. I don't know if some of them have come out. I'm doing a few more. So yeah, it's been really wild to be asked on, but I'm happy to do it. Okay. And I think you mentioned that you got, did you get retweeted by Bill Ackman? Bill Ackman? That was the beginning of my viral moment.
Because that was what it came off of. It was on TikTok. My video was on TikTok. It was kind of doing well. It was getting a little views. And then it got reposted by a random account on Twitter. And then that random account, Bill Ackman then retweeted it. He was like, this girl knows what she's doing. And I'm like, I'm 35, but okay. My dad was joking. He was like, Lucy, you're going viral because everyone thinks you're 19 and you're having these realizations. They don't realize that you're a mother of 2 with a mortgage. Like...
Yeah, I don't think anybody cares too much about how old you are, but you have so much sanity. I'm going to read another thing I love that you said. Yeah. Growing up has taught me that prosperity comes from less government, less regulation, and lower taxes, not more of them. You're saying all sorts of stuff like that, right? So you're not just concentrating just on climate, or you're talking about energy. You're talking about socialism doesn't work. You're so many things you say are striking a chord with people. I think that's why you're going viral.
Oh my gosh, thank you. It's so interesting because it's been such a discovering process for me because, like I said, I just started making content again like 3 months ago, and seeing what I've been drawn to commenting on. Like I never would have predicted that when I started my climate movement series that I would have wanted to comment on Mamdani and AOC. I didn't see the connection, but now that I've been making content, I totally see the connection. Everything that you're saying, sort of this common sense approach to things like, guys, we got to live in reality. Like I get it. Wanting to put up 1 million solar panels, just like wanting to tax the rich and have free school. It feels so good. It's such good feel-good policy. But when you really look at the real world impacts of these policies, they do not work, and they can actually be destructive and create the very problem that you're trying to avoid. And unfortunately, there's so much projection right now in our society, and people don't think past the catchy slogan of like, net zero by 2050 or free apartments for all. And you're like, they vote on that. And then they don't realize that like, oh, there's no more apartment stock because the landlords can't raise the rent. And now they're all sitting empty and everyone's moved on to their new cause. And so I'm trying to be like, we got to come back, guys. Like we all want the same things, less inequality, more poverty. We all want the same things, less inequality, less poverty, and more human flourishing. And the only way that we differ is what the solutions are. And I think that the solutions are, and I think most people who have lived long enough know, the solutions are capitalism and people's ability to create prosperity with their ingenuity. I don't want to control everybody's life. I'm not trying to be top down in your life. Like I want you to have the idea and you have the ability to raise capital and hire people, whatever. That to me is what creates prosperity. And all these young socialists, and I was one of them, they are making their decisions off of emotion, and they're saying, I don't want inequality. So not only do I not want inequality, I don't want people to be rich. Because if there are very rich people, then there are very poor people. And for some reason, that is where their logic goes, when really what you realize is that rich people create jobs for other people. They're not just in their, mansion hoarding their gold coins, like they employ people or whatever. So yeah, it's all connected.
Just this morning, I was looking through your Instagram, and you do such a good job of packaging up stuff in very short, like 3-minute packages. Do you remember this one you did maybe recently about a solar village? There was a solar village that Greenpeace was saying, oh, this is so great, they're going to power everything with solar. Do you want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, so Bjorn Lomborg, actually, that's an example from his book, False Alarm, which I just read. He's a really great writer who is occupying the same space, and he's been a huge inspiration for me. And that was an example from his book about how solar will never run the world. And then he explains, I like laugh about it for some reason. It like kind of makes me laugh because it's just such a good example. So in 2015, Greenpeace rolled out this solar village called Darnay in India, and they rolled it out to big fanfare, the press releases, the villagers, sitting next to the solar panels, like you can picture it. Then in 2021, it gets reported that all the solar panels stopped working after 3 years max because nobody came to repair them, and they just fell to disrepair. The batteries weren't enough for people to run refrigerators and real appliances. And now the solar place that they built for the village is just being used as a barn for cattle, a hay barn for cattle. And in the video that you're referencing, I basically just say, like, there are uses for solar. I think rooftop solar, I think that's fine. If people want to put it on the roof, if you want to charge a phone, go for it. Like, I'm not going to stop you. Again, freedom of choice. But the idea that solar in its current iteration is going to come anywhere near to replacing fossil fuels is a dream. And we need to just live with those facts and don't shoot the messenger just because I'm telling you that your dream isn't real. Like, I don't know what to tell you guys.
So another part of the appeal of your stuff, I think, is you're willing to use words like scam and grifter.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think about first, or you just speak from the heart, or what are you doing there?
It's a combination. I definitely think with some of the ways that I phrase things, it is very intentional. Like my climate movement is a scam series that I did for 30 days. That was very intentional on my part. Like, I wanted it to break through. I wanted people to be like, what? No, it's not. Like, I knew what I was doing. And that was because I knew people were going to get mad about it, even though I think what I'm saying, my actual message in each video, I think is very moderate and rational. But I knew that that title was just going to get people to be commenting and start a discussion. So I am very intentional about it. But I also am I sort of start to build videos in my head throughout the day. Like, I'll start to feel inspiration for a video the night before or the morning of, and I'm kind of like just going over it in my head. And then when I sit down to record, a lot of the things that I say will just come out in the moment, and I don't plan it. And I even think the climate scam thing is interesting because I felt that worked really well on TikTok, where I don't have already people who follow me who know me. And so I could just sort of be a little bit edgier there. But then when I was coming over to Instagram to post again, where a lot of my family follows me and old coworkers, I stopped using that language because I knew it was just going to be way too divisive. I've changed my tagline to be, or the way that I discuss these topics to be, I make content to counter the climate alarmism narrative and climate anxiety, because that is what I lived with. And I don't want young kids to also live with that. And in a lot of ways, it's the same exact topic, but just the way that I'm framing it is a little bit more palatable. So I am very conscious of that. As a social media editor at the Free Press, I mean, like, I have a viral video brain, for better or worse.
Okay, so you're TikTok, Instagram, and then on X, you're posting some of these videos, and they're doing well on X. And then you're also on TV, you're breaking through there, and then also writing articles now. I heard you say you're not a writer, but you're writing some articles that are doing very well too, right?
Yeah, so what happened, I've written 3 articles now for the Free Press, and basically what's happened, because speaking is so my medium and video is my medium, is I've done a video on something and then like it's gotten passed into the company Slack, and Barry, our founder, has been like, I love this. Like, you have to write a piece about this. And so that happened with the Mamdani AOC thing, is I did a video on my own that sort of started getting spread. And then Barry was like, okay, you got to write the piece. And it was a little bit different. Like, it was just more my first person story. We cut some of the stuff from the video, and it went through the Free Press editorial standards. But so, yeah, I'll probably be doing more of that, because now that I've been doing it, Barry is like, oh my God, I love this. Like, we should be doing more of this medium. And so it's been a cool sort of symbiotic relationship where she's learning about this medium, and then my medium can become into writing. So it's just the new media landscape, and it works out really well.
And then your views are going over okay within the Free Press? Or are you getting pushback there that...
No, it's so funny. I did a really long video. I don't know if you saw it, about how I used to think my boss, Barry Weiss, was evil when I worked at my old company.
I didn't see that one, no.
Oh, it's like 8 minutes. So you can press a double speed button on Instagram. You can hold your finger down. So just public service announcement. But basically, I wrote to this video, and it ended up being like 8 minutes in my car. And it was a story of just basically how I went from being indoctrinated into leftist groupthink when I was at my old company to working at the Free Press, and how for years before I left my old company, I only got confirmation from the group on what I should believe, because the group said, we live in this oppressor versus oppressed world. You are white privileged, you are cis privileged, you are Western American privileged. You don't even realize that you're racist. You don't even realize your blind spots. And so you need to sit down and give the stage to the BIPOCs, the queer, whatever. You know the mindset. And so as a well-meaning young person who was empathetic, I wanted to be considerate of other viewpoints. And I still, by the way, want to be considerate of other viewpoints. And I think that is a very important thing. But this was like taking it to the next level of not just listening to other viewpoints, but silencing the voices of people from certain identity groups, in this case, like white, straight, etc. because they are inherently racist because of your identity. So anyway, I lived in that. That was the water that I was swimming in for my 20s. And then I left the Free Press and Then I left Now This.
Yeah.
And I worked at a nonprofit for a year and sat next to a libertarian there named Ricky Schlott. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she's great. And she told me about Barry and she was like, oh, I listened to her podcast and she's so good. And other backstory is that when I was at Now This, Barry's name would like kind of get passed around the Slack because like she's pro-Israel. She would have a tweet that would go viral for all the wrong reasons. And she would be like the canceled person on Twitter at one point. Her New York Times article when she left, I'm pretty sure I was still at Now This for that. All of that went viral. And it just sent me the message because I was in groupthink that Barry was a bad person. Oh. Like she was like what is that expression? Like non grata, like persona non grata. Like don't even listen to her. She's bad. I never even listened to any of her stuff. And then when I finally, from this tip from my friend at my next job, said you should listen to Barry, I listened to her and I'm like, she's awesome. Like, this is the most nuanced conversation I've heard in so long. Like, this is what I've been looking for. And ironically, the first conversation I ever listened to with Barry was her conversation with Kim Kardashian, which is weird, but it was really funny because they talked about Kanye wearing the MAGA hat back in the day. And what I liked about the conversation was that it was a normal conversation. It was about what is it like when someone in your family has different political beliefs than you? And I was so starved for nuance at that point that the fact that the conversation wasn't shut down and Kim wasn't being scolded because her husband wore a red hat, but instead Barry was like, what was that like for you? And anyway, so I became a big Barry fan. All this is to say, long story short, is I go to the Free Press. I from that became a Barry fan, apply for the Free Press, get a job there. And then it was like really an opportunity for me to deprogram. Like, what do I actually believe? I'm going to go through every single one of my beliefs. And now I'm going to figure out, what do I believe about open borders? What do I think about abortion? Like, what should be the cutoff for abortion? Like, what do I think about, legal immigration, whatever, the economy? And the thing about Free Press is that it's such a ideologically diverse place where there are people who voted for Trump, there are people who voted for Kamala, there's people who voted in third party. And we know that. And so it's celebrated that you should think for yourself. And so I think the reason why I'm able to make my content, and most of it's just under my personal handle, it's not even like co-signed by the Free Press, is because of the Free Press culture that I've now been part of for 2.5 years. That's helped me be like, oh, I'm going to think for myself. Like, I actually want to know, what do I believe? And I'm going to bring it online. And I'm never going to get in trouble at the Free Press for doing that. Like, Barry like loves it. She's like, yes, it's amazing. Like, do more. Like, it's so great. So it's been a very like positive reaction.
So when you were back at me and Now This, do you think there was a lot of guilt and self-hatred and people felt bad about using a plastic straw? You've mentioned that. Just you have to feel bad about having a good lifestyle, having AC, having gas for your car, all that stuff.
So I was definitely the most climate crazy in the office. I don't know if that was people's like issue as much as it was for mine, because I felt guilty for that stuff. And I obviously can't speak to anyone's mind, but I can say from my perspective, so much of what I was motivated by was guilt for being on the top of the oppressor scale. And then almost the stuff that I would cover was an atonement. So the way that I covered Standing Rock, it's like I'm atoning for the fact that like my ancestors like hurt Native Americans, but now I can be on the right side of history and atone for this horrible past by covering this topic. And even though the facts don't quite add up, emotionally it felt like a fit. And so, I mean, that was basically motivated like almost all my coverage. And I think for a lot of people, that still is the motivator for them in these big newsrooms. I think that mindset still has its clutches on places like New York Times. I think it kind of left Now This and like got out of the lab and it went to all these places. We're seeing some sanity, but I feel like it's still holding on to like the mainstream media of like the cultural elite.
Yeah. Do you get a sense that this type of thing is more concentrated in a place like New York than elsewhere in the country as you travel? You must see big differences.
Yeah, I think it is. And even just like seeing what my commenters say, and this is such a good point that I don't think I get to enough, is like wherever you have a majority opinion, you're going to have groupthink, you're going to have black and white thinking, you're going to have sort of religiously held beliefs that most people are not questioning. And maybe those beliefs, when they go through that rational test, will stand up to the facts. But many of them might be emotion, and it's just the water that you're swimming in. And I would say if you grew up in a super conservative place here in the US, I think there's equal problems of groupthink. Like we see like how people on the right fell for QAnon conspiracies or something like that. Maybe a lot of times they are right. And a lot of my beliefs actually have become much more conservative, but I've arrived at it by critically examining every single one of my beliefs, which I think is different. And not to say any lesser that I'm not saying like other conservatives are different, but like if you just grow up in a conservative town and that's what you believe and that's the water you swim in, it's going to be different than when you leave a left majority place and becomes conservative. Also, maybe if you leave a conservative majority place and become more liberal. And so I say this again and again, I'm like, guys, I'm only speaking from my experience. I'm only my expert on my own story. And so if I'm criticizing the left, it's because it's what I know. I cannot criticize right-wing groupthink because I don't have that experience and other people can do that. And by the way, our mainstream media is doing it every single day. So there's that. But yeah.
I don't know if I should bring this up, but did you go vegan to protest Trump when he won in 2016?
Vegetarian, actually. I couldn't even go vegan. Oh my God. I went vegetarian to protest Trump because I was like, I'm out of control. This is how I can like have control.
Okay.
So crazy. I'm sorry, guys. I would be curious to know, like, what was the first bit of content that you saw that you were like, oh, I want to have her on my podcast?
It must have been something climate related. I can't remember which thing it was, but I have all these searches for climate and it must have come up on X somewhere. I can't remember which one, but it hasn't been that long because you haven't even been doing this very long. Huh? Since May. Huh?
Yeah. Right before Memorial Day weekend of this year is when I like took the leap. And yeah, one of my most controversial topics, which I think is so funny, is I always say like I love fossil fuels, which I took that from Alex Epstein. He is like the fossil fuel guy. I'm sure you're familiar with his work.
Yep.
And I remember like back in the day seeing his work and he would wear like an I love fossil fuels shirt. And I'd be like, like, but it's actually a really good exercise to try to break through to someone who's in groupthink is like, that's such a neutral statement. Fossil fuels truly have brought more people out of poverty than any other technology in the history of the world and freed women up from just collecting fuel all day as their primary activity. And so to say I love fossil fuels, it should not be controversial at all. And it's just so funny. I get these reactions from people or my friends will even be like, oh, I saw your fossil fuel video, or my friend saw your fossil fuel video and they said, wow, Lucy's become a right-wing like nut. She's gone all in. And I'm like, fossil fuels should not be right-wing coded. Like they are awesome. And I will die on that hill. The facts don't lie.
And again, you said overall, you've gotten more positive feedback than negative?
Yes.
Overall, really?
Well, I mean, it depends on the post. My AOC Mamdani piece that right now is on the Free Press Instagram. I mean, it's been seen by like, I think it's almost 1 million people. I have not read any of the comments. I think they're really, really, really negative. But I would say the messages that I get that are super thoughtful, that message me and say, thank you so much. Like, you're so brave. And like, you can tell from the message that they get it. They get where I'm coming from and they're aligned. Like those messages fill up my cup, I guess, way more than the negative comments that are just projections that aren't even dealing with the same set of facts or reality that I'm occupying. And it's such a distortion. The negativity is such a distortion of who I am. Versus like the positivity, it feels like that's someone who's actually seeing me for who I am and saying, keep going, like you're doing good. And so it far outweighs that. And I feel like TikTok, mostly my TikTok algorithm, I land on the right side of TikTok. Instagram, I get a mix.
So going back to the whole climate thing, do you think that the climate movement is backed off enough so that they're not going to be able to get 400,000 people to march in New York City, which they allegedly had in 2014? Do you think they could do that?
When's their next march?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard. And then Greta's not holding her sign anymore on Fridays. She's moved on to other stuff.
She's in Gaza.
Well, did you call it the Omni cause? Or
yes.
Yeah.
The Omni cause. Yeah, I think it has peaked. Again, I think that this mindset of these young people who are so brainwashed, honestly, by this ideology that is very anti-West. People call it like woke, but I feel like it's kind of a little bit overstated, but that's one way to describe it. Just like anti-West, anti-progress, anti-human ideology that's permeated everything. I think that they've moved on from climate change, and climate change was their cause in the 2010s. And then COVID happened, and then it was like all about lockdowns became their cause, and you're killing kids if you go outside, or killing your grandparents if you go outside, whatever it was. And then now the new thing is Gaza. I don't know how long this one will have legs, but it seems like everyone just cares. And they connect it. They're like, well, all the bombs being dropped in Gaza are like their emissions. And I'm like, what? And they're like, Gaza would be like a green paradise if like Israel wasn't. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. It's like the noble savage like trope where they think anything that's not us is like, no, they would actually be so peaceful and be running on green energy if it wasn't for Israel. You're like, oh my God. So I don't think that they could get 400,000 people. I think they moved on. But I will say every time there's extreme weather, it like has a flare up. The mindset is a flare up. So for example, that devastating flooding that happened in Mystic, which was so awful. And all of a sudden, then my newsfeed is just like other floods happening. And then it's the think pieces like the flooding's getting worse, like whatever. And then you actually look at the science and it's like, actually, surprisingly, we have seen some more rain in certain regions, but the flooding has net been the same. And you're like, okay, so like, I think IPCC says we can't even draw conclusions on flooding yet. They're like, there's no pattern that's emerged. Like we can see patterns. I don't even know what we can see patterns on yet off the top of my head, but you know what I'm saying? How they'll say that, like,
yeah, it
there's
says
no
something,
pattern. Yeah.
something about how we don't even know the sign of the change globally. I think they say that, I think.
Yeah, they'll say like, we can't make out a pattern from the noise.
Right.
So for flooding, it's like, yeah, every year there's extreme flooding. And like, of course, the way the human mind works is pattern recognition. And you have one set of flooding that's so devastating and it is a really bad tragedy. And then there's another set of flooding in New Mexico. And then people are like, look. And you're like, okay. And like, even that one actually was really hard for me to put out because it was so charged still.
Right.
I feel like a lot of the stuff I have like the distance of time where I can talk about Standing Rock and it's not the topic of the day and I feel safer. But wading into that, I was like, I had anxiety about it, especially because people have actually lost their loved ones. And like, oh God, like I don't want to be politicizing someone who just is having the worst experience of their life. But I do think it's so important to bring people out of this fear and projection and back into the facts. And that's like a theme that it's really emerged with my content. So I just did this video today that was just basically how the parallels between the way the Western media covers climate change in this alarmist way, that the underlying takeaway from the coverage is like the West is bad, human progress is bad, industrialization is bad, right? That's how we cover climate change. So we have to cover it in an alarmist way so people know that it's really bad, right? And that's for whatever reason how the New York Times covers climate change. It's like, these islands are sinking. And then it's like, well, actually they're not. They've grown because of accretion. And it's like, but we're going to still put the picture of a guy like up to his ankles in water and put that on the cover of the magazine, whatever. So with Gaza, I think there was just a huge misinformation scandal that came out that they showed a malnourished child and the child actually suffered from cerebral palsy and another genetic disorder. And that's why he looked malnourished. And that it was ran in New York Times. And that is the equivalent of, to me, is every time there's a hurricane, we say, this is because of man-made climate change and Trump has defunded this and that. You guys better, like, this is what you asked for. And you're like, okay, like also hurricanes happen, also like, and then like with the war in Gaza, it's like also like wars happen, like horrible, devastating things happen in this war. No one's denying that. But to take the Hamas propaganda hook, line, and sinker and have it run in the Western media is so irresponsible. And I think, I don't know who the climate like hysteria lobby is, because it's like more like, I think, opaque and sort of diffused now. It's almost just like the water that we swim in. But there's like the climate alarmism lobby where every time there's a fire, they're like, see, the world is burning because of you, because of your commercial agriculture and your need for a phone. And you're like, why are you like, like what is happening? And versus being like, you know, guys, wildfires happen because there's no forest management and like every wildfire is essentially preventable. It has nothing to do with climate change, but they like love the disaster porn, basically, that then becomes memes. So it's crazy.
You did a great job with that horrible thing flooding in Texas. You did a great job of, I think it may be a 3-minute video where you go through the data and say, look, CO2 didn't cause this, basically. I think that's wonderful. How long does it take for you to do something like that? Can you just a couple hours,
a
few hours? Yeah.
So it takes me a lot of thinking about stuff in my head. Like I was saying the night before, like I feel like my mind kind of goes over the script a lot in my head. And then by the time I'm sitting down to actually film the video, it could be very fast because it's like, I know my points that I want to hit. And some of this is like information that I've had in the back of my mind for 5 years. I've been waiting to like bring it out. So it could take anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour if I have to like make edits and I'm not as familiar with the subject. But like I did like 9 videos in one sitting once, just like back to back. I was like, this is how I left the climb. My first 9 videos was like part 8. I don't think you can see it on my page. I did like 8 parts a few weeks ago. That I filmed back to back and it took me like 45 minutes because I just would film and then I would go to the next one. I'd film and then I would video edit it later on my computer. So that was probably another like 10 minutes per video of editing because I just knew what I wanted to say really badly. So yeah, it actually doesn't take me as long as you think.
So that's amazing. You did those yourself? You didn't have a whole team of 10 people and a studio and everything? You just filmed them yourself, wrote the script yourself, edited? It's all your...
Yeah. I just edited them. I'm a video editor. So that's like one of my first things that I've been doing in my job. So I know how to video edit. And then the script, usually I just go into it knowing what I want to say. And if I flub and mess up, I just cut out the mistakes. So then sometimes you'll see jump cuts. It's usually because I just messed something up.
Yeah. It is pretty heartwarming again, though, that you can do this like 50 years ago or 100 years ago. If you had ideas you wanted to share with 1 million people, there's no way you could do it. But now you can do it in an hour. That's
I think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Because we really are living in this new era that I don't even think we've really had the time to reflect on it. But even for me, I'm having been out of college now for 15, whatever it is. I graduated in 2012. One of my first job, my camera was like the size of me, and it was a huge camera. And then I had to come home, I had to ingest the footage, and then it would go up on the news that night, locally, whatever. And now, like you're saying, it's like if you have a platform, you can get to more people. And I think the problem that we've seen in the past 10 years is that the people who are smart and rational are not breaking through, and the really emotional, alarmist narratives are what gets the biggest reach. And I feel like that goes back to like one of my whys. Like we need to be getting the rational, grounded, fact-based stuff to be as shared and mainstream as what is running right now, which is all emotion. But it's exciting time. I love it. I'm so glad that I don't have to be ingesting footage anymore and waiting and all that.
You're not using AI for anything to help you do this stuff faster, or are you?
I will use AI to like get quick facts. I'll be like, hey, how long would it take a woman who doesn't have access to fuel these days to like collect wood? And AI could be like, it'll be anywhere from like 2 to 3 hours a day to 5 hours a day, like that kind of thing. If I like need a quick fact that I just need to, it's almost, I just use it like Google. And sometimes I've like run my videos afterwards. I've run the transcript through AI to be like, help me write a caption for this. But I kind of stopped doing that because I realized I could just do it. I just sort of know what I want to say and stream of consciousness it. But AI is amazing. For calculations, for just synthesizing ideas or asking. Sometimes I'll be like, AI, help me, like, if I have an idea of how I want to present a video, like, you know, sometimes you have that text on the top.
Yeah.
I will say, I'll say like, this is what I want to write. Like, do you have any, give me some other suggestions of like the most shareable way to frame this video? And that's a good use of it. But I would say it's like minuscule, but it's helpful.
So also, were the lies of COVID, were they instrumental in waking you up and getting you to question other things? It was, even for me, it was.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yes. I think that was like a lot of people, like the pieces fell into place. For me, coming from the climate angle, all the plastic that I was all of a sudden being used everywhere. And I had been worried about using a straw for the last 10 years. And I'm like, wait, I cared about my little plastic straw. Now there's PPE, like plastic dividers between every desk. And we're all using a plastic mask like 5 times a day. Like, what am I even doing? And like, we're going to be fine. And then also like when the emissions went down, I was just like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. The entire world is shut down. We're not allowed to leave our houses and the emissions have gone down like 2% or something. I don't know the exact number. And you're like, okay, if we wanted the emissions reduction that the climate movement is asking for, they want to end civilization because we can't do it. So those are my 2 like kind of climate related to COVID. And on top of that, obviously seeing like how the New York Times reported such crazy, you know, narratives that made no sense. So it was all kind of connected.
So I hear some people saying that, I didn't care about climate until I became a parent. Then I became so worried that CO2 was going to hurt my child. But becoming a parent for you kind of went the other way, didn't it? That you became more based in reality and realized that sometimes you need to use plastic to be a good parent, all that stuff. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Just realizing the reality of what it takes to be a parent in modern society. And I'm like, this is a waste of my like life force to be anxious every second of every day about what I'm consuming. Like I need to use that energy to be present for my child and also not to have my child grow up with, through osmosis, the guilt and the shame of basically of just living a modern life. And ultimately, we're so lucky to live in the West and what we have and the waste infrastructure that we have. It's great. And we should be grateful for it versus demonizing it and fearful of it. And yeah, the misinformation around our impact it's like the new original sin where you just can't get away from feeling awful.
Yeah, there are a lot of parallels to religion between the climate cult and standard religion, I think. Do you have plans, short-term plans about what you plan to do more pushing back or pushing for common sense, that type of thing in the next year?
Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep following my inspiration, having conversations like these. I say yes to all my interview requests just to get practice talking about these ideas, and hopefully just keep going. I don't have like anything concrete, but it's definitely going in like the right direction, which has been awesome.
Okay. And then in the show description, I have your X here and your Instagram. Any other places where I guess people should look for you at the Free Press, right?
Yeah, definitely check out the Free Press, and our website's thefp.com. I run the social media on there. So we also have an Instagram, which is the Free Press. And then I'm also on Substack Notes, which is also just my name, Lucy Biggers. Most of the things though, if you follow me on one platform, you're going to just get most of it. On the other platforms, only like TikTok, I will do more content because I feel like you can just sort of throw things at the wall on TikTok a little bit more. But yeah, follow me all places and definitely follow the Free Press because it's great.
Okay. Any other points you want to make before we finish up here?
No, thank you so much for this conversation. I had so much fun.